Hey everybody, Dave Kincaid here, and welcome to an episode of Winning the Public Purse. I'm, of course, your host, and I'm here solo this week, and I want to talk to you about something interesting that happened. Basically, this has been going on for about 6 years, but it really came to light here on the weekend. At the time of this recording, it's August 2026, so getting near the end of summer, and I thought this would be an interesting episode because it sort of was an event that happened that sort of was an accumulation of a number of things that have happened over the years where, I don't know, kind of had like an aha moment in a way. Just never knew a way to kind of communicate it or phrase it. But essentially the story goes like this. You know, some organizations win a lot of grants, some don't. And people will say, various reasons why that's the case, right? And I've been at this a long time, right? I've been writing professionally since 2012. So I've seen a lot of different organizations, a lot of different leaders. I've had a private practice now for a long time, and over 174 students go through my advanced grant writing class. So I've seen and have a lot of experience that I'd like to share with you in this episode around winning grants from this idea of a hobby I picked up a number of years ago, fly fishing. So most of you probably know what fly fishing is, obviously, but unlike traditional fishing, right, where you just have a reel and a rod and you put a hook on the end, you throw it out, and you basically look at it, put a bobber on it, or just reel it back. Fly fishing is one of these ones where it's just more technical. You've got the reel, like my rod's like a 9-foot rod, has this reel where it has a bunch of line, and it's the one where you're up whipping it over your head and then casting it out. It looks cool, but it's hard. And I shouldn't say it's hard. It's hard to start, like it's probably like golf, right? But it's different than golf in the sense that, I feel like golf, you can grab a club, and if you have some athletic ability, you can wind up and just crank it. Now, getting it straight is a different story. Fly fishing is unique because you have this, 30 plus feet of wire with a hook on it flying through the air behind you. So it's quite an interesting situation. So anyway, here's the story. So in 2020, of course, that was during the pandemic, I was looking for wasn't really because of the pandemic, but I was looking for a hobby, something to get away from the computer screen, right? And I started getting into fishing. I always thought fly fishing would be really cool. And so I signed up for like a beginner class, and it was fine. I learned to fish or cast, and I would get out a couple times a year, but lately I've been trying to go more. And I wouldn't say I'm trying to go more. I'm actually trying to do less other things and more of one thing. Gosh, I don't know what it's like for you out there, but I find every time you do something new, there's all this learning curve or gear, equipment. And I was like, okay, no, I'm going to kind of narrow down and really get into fly fishing. Well, I ended up going on a trip to Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, in a place called the Margaree River. And Google it, it's pretty cool. Anyways, I'm out there, I'm casting, and it's just pathetic. I'm like casting out for 10 feet. And so basically I have this problem, and it's kind of like in grants, right? There's these problems. So think about grants and government for a minute. There's, at the time of this recording, there's the trade negotiations that have stalled. Productivity rate in Canada is, Google the line you want to use, but it's low, and it's been low for a while, and it's a real problem. Basically, we're less prosperous as a society if we don't get our productivity in check. And I think it's a real problem. I'd love to have an economist on here to talk about it, but I think it's very serious in terms of your well-being. So how do you become more productive? Well, think about if you're the government. They have grants that solve this, right? So they have the Regional Tariff Response Initiative, and they have, in Alberta, it's the Canada-Alberta Productivity Grant. And you look at the province you're in, if you're in another one, you'll see various grants like this where the government's like, we have a real problem. Okay, let's organize our tax dollars, our grants, to help businesses and organizations. And so what I've seen over the years basically is, some organizations do pretty well, right? Like they're like, okay, they're going to win, or if they lose, they come back. And other organizations, they struggle. And you probably already have seen this, like certain organizations keep winning grants all the time, right? And why is that? Are they better writers? Do they sleep longer at night? Were they English minors or something, or my majors? Like, why is that the case that some of them seem to do well and others struggle? So this weekend, having watched my casting, I was like, this is brutal. I made a commitment, and I think this is really important. And I said, you know what? I knew from like an earlier fishing trip, there was this really good casting place. I drove 3 hours. I got the lesson, 2.5 hour lesson. It was not a busy time, no one around. And this guy, Brock, like instantly solves all my problems. It's insane. Like he's like, oh, your hand's not here. You should do this. Oh, did you know? He gave me basically like, it's almost not overwhelming. It's almost like surprising, if you will. Like he's like, oh, this is wrong. This is wrong. You're not going back. You're going back too far. Your hand's too low. And then by the end of the lesson, it's unbelievable. I'm making the best casts I've ever made in my life, okay? Which is all I can really strive to do. And so I made this commitment, drove, took the lesson, and I was like, wow. And I see that with organizations and grants. And at some point, leadership is like, okay, this is enough. There's got to be a better way. Other people are winning grants. We need to win grants. Let's deal with this. Enough is enough. Let's invest and do it. And I think that is probably the number one thing of all time. Some people say this: if we invest in training, what if the people leave? And another person looks at the same scenario. You might have heard this and says, what if we don't invest in them and they stay? And so it's like choices, right? Like life is about choices. And some people will say, I'm going to make a choice and get better. I'm going to make a choice and learn this skill. I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to say no to like other things like softball in my case. I'm not going to go play softball anymore. I'm going to focus on fishing. And it's something I can do. I can age and do it. It gets me out in country, which I love. And so I think that's a valuable lesson that we can all take away from this is like, what is the leadership? And whether I was writing for grants, Ed Elfkeet, Radical, that sold the BMO, the CEO of one of the fastest growing companies, like 2 years in a row, Deloitte Fast 50 tech company, would meet with me one-on-one because he knew business awards and grants were a very important part of his organization. He'd be throwing people out of all the office all the time. No, Dave's here. We're working. And man, did he thrive, not only in the grants, but also in other areas. And I think that's just a lesson we can take away from life is like, leadership matters, making a commitment, whether you're going to learn to take piano, you're going to go get a piano instructor, or, learn grants or learn fishing, whatever it is, learn to cook, courses are available. And that's how we address things like productivity and growing our business. We have to get new skills. Okay, second lesson. And I think this is really fascinating because what happens is let me give you a scenario. For municipalities, the head of a municipality is called a chief administrative officer. That is the bureaucrat side, not the elected side. Okay, and their life expectancy. I don't know what their life expectancy is, but it's like their career expectancy is like 3 years or something. It's really below. And this is kind of what I'm going to get at here, and I'm going to show you. And it's this idea of who's who in the zoo. So many organizations, they know grants are, well, they don't even know some of the grants exist because they're too busy. But what's more troubling in some cases is that they're not getting the right help. They're not knowing sort of where to turn or who the right people are. And I think this is actually really dangerous. So let's say you're a nonprofit in this case, or CAO, doesn't matter. You're busy in the day-to-day operations. You're not paying attention to what's going on. You don't know, that person, they're really good at this. This person over there, I hear they're doing that, like that. Like the great CEOs that I've worked with, like they're connected, right? They're reading the papers, they're going to events, they're meeting people, like who's doing what's going on. Like they know. But for a lot of executive directors or CAOs or entrepreneurs, right? They can get doing the busy work and let the stakeholders, not knowing the stakeholders, slide. And it can be hidden, right? It can be hidden for a long time. It's like, you don't know the best person to build my website. You don't know the best carpenter to build my deck. You don't know all these people because you haven't invested in that. And that becomes a problem because eventually the results rear their ugly head. Right? Eventually, you weren't winning grants. Eventually, you didn't build the deck. Eventually, your casting is still terrible. It's hidden until it's not. Like eating, right? Like, my doctor says I got high cholesterol, so I've had to completely change the way I eat. And now I'm in the kitchen working my butt off. It's exhausting. But it's really easy for week after week after week to just kind of get by eating okay and mixing it up a little bit, maybe put on a pound here, a pound there. Next thing you know, it's 20 pounds. And it didn't come overnight. It came over 3 years. So this is the second leadership lesson. It's just like, who are the people? For me, with my health, it was one of the instructors at the gym and a good friend of mine, really, really knocking it out of the park in health. And I made less time for people that are not pulling me in that direction and more time for them. And again, I had to know someone, right? Like it wasn't something I could just watch online. Like I had to get out of my comfort zone, start attending fitness classes that I didn't know anyone, start painfully going through food menus and learning new skills. So it's no different when the government has these programs. They have these programs out, but you've got to not only make the commitment to go do it, but to know, hey, who are the people that are trusted, are great, have proven records, who can solve this for me quickly. By the end of the Saturday in my fishing lessons, I was making the best casting in my life. In fact, it's Monday morning as I'm recording this, and the instructor sent her an email with a summary of the areas that I need to improve on. So I've got a written document now. So that's the kind of, and guess what? Yeah, it costs a little bit of money, but like go to a restaurant, and not that much, go to a restaurant and for 2 people and tell me what that costs you. So it's not even that. It's a small investment, but yet some leaders, they'll say, it costs too much, and they'll pay a dear price. Or, I don't have time to go meet and network. So that's a problem. And the third lesson that I'm going to give you is, just taking that small step forward, okay? Yes, it can feel overwhelming. I get it. But at some point, fewer people, like why do we have so many people overweight? Because few people are putting the work in the kitchen, right? And I'm one of them, right? I'm trying to get my health tight and stuff like that. So It's a road less traveled, yes. Is it harder? Yes, but there's fewer people on it. And once you start going down that road, it's funny how life is. It gets easier and you learn. So I hope that by taking one small step forward on this new path, whatever that is for you, and you need to really think about it. It could be very good for you. Anyway, that's it for this episode, little solo episode. Hopefully give you a jolt of energy to take a step here. And just to recap with you, so remember, it's make that commitment, whatever it is in your life. You're listening to the government grant, the Winning the Public Purse podcast on how to win government grants. So make the commitment. Okay, I'm going to do this. 2, know who's who in the zoo. And 3, take a step forward. And I'll leave you with this, just this, a plug. I've got, at the time of this recording, I got a couple spots left in my advanced grant writing course in Lacombe, September 21st to 25th. There's training grants available that cover up to 50% of it or more. If you're actually in Lacombe, let me know. So reach out to me, David K at albertabusinessgrants.ca or 780-297-6177. We'll try to get you in the class, and we'll go from there. Have a great one. Bye-bye.